to watch a quick video on stem changing verbs in the present indicative. Let's go ahead and get started. First question that you should ask yourself is, what is the stem of a verb in Spanish? The stem is going to be every single letter in the verb except for the AR, the IR, or the ER. So you can see here, almorzar, within almorzar I've got almorz. All of these letters make up the stem. In pedir I've got ped. Empezar I've got empez. So what that means is that a stem changing verb is a verb whose stem will change. Obviously. A couple of points to keep in mind about stem changing verbs. One is that not every single verb is going to stem change. Remember that in Spanish 1 you all learned a lot of verbs that will never stem change at all. So once you learn about stem changing verbs, you can't think that every single verb will stem change. So then how are you supposed to know if a verb is stem changing or if it isn't? And the answer is that you really cannot tell just by looking at the verb if it stem changes or if it doesn't. There are, however, a couple of clues that we're going to look at in a second that will help make identifying if a verb could possibly stem change a lot easier. Let's first look at the different types of stem changers in present indicative. And really there are only 3 types, but a fourth one I've added here just because it does still stem change. However, it's going to be the only verb within that category. So we have E to IE verbs. And what that means is that, remember again, here's my stem. I've got empez. So within this stem, one of my E's is going to change to IE. We're going to talk in a second about which E that's going to be. Notice here that I added at the end that E to IE verbs within this category, it could be any verb, an AR, ER, or an IR verb. The next category I have are E to I, so that means that my E in the stem is going to change to an I. Notice here that only IR verbs will change from E to I. So I cannot have an AR verb that will change E to I, and I cannot have an ER verb change E to I. My third category is an O will change to a UE. It doesn't matter what the ending are. It could be AR, ER, IR. If you know that it is stem changing and there's an O in the stem, then it's going to change O to OE, to UE. And then the last category is a U to UE, but the only verb that's in that category is the verb jugar. Let's keep going. A couple more rules to remember is that you will not stem change in the nosotros or the vosotros forms. For those of you who might not have learned about vosotros, remember that that means you all, and it's used in specific countries, like it's used in Spain. If a verb has more than one vowel within the stem, and here are some examples, like repetir, notice that there's an E here and there's an E here. Preferir, here's an E and here's an E, all within the stem. The rule is that the vowel closest to the end is the vowel that's going to stem change. So here I've got underlined repetir. This E is the one closest to the IR, so it's going to stem change. Same thing with preferir. All right, and then here are just some conjugations. You'll notice that I've changed my E here to IE. Empiezo, empiezas, empieza. Remember that rule. I do not stem change in the nosotros and the vosotros forms. So my E stays in E. And then I have empiezan. These verbs are also called shoe verbs or boot verbs. Maybe if your Spanish 2 teacher taught you boot or shoe verbs, then you would recognize that. Our next verb is repetir. Remember, this is the verb that changes E to I. So you'll notice I've got repito, repites, repite, repetimos. I've got no stem change here, and repiten. Another thing to notice is that just because my verb stem changes does not affect the ending. I still have an O, Still have an ES and an E here. So I'm still conjugating regularly. It's just that now I'm adding a stem change. Almorzar, you can see the stem changes here, O to UE. And again, I'm not stem changing in the nosotros and the vosotros. And then here's my last verb, jugar, which is in its own category. And there you go, stem changing in the present indicative.